The road to hell is paved with good intentions. What is a real-life example of this? A man named Dr. Spock wrote a handbook for child-rearing. It was widely circulated and well received. Many of our parents likely got their child-rearing advice from this book. In it he recognized that babies throw up a lot and therefore recommended newborns be laid on their stomachs to sleep. Unknowingly, this would result in the accidental smothering deaths of thousands of newborns. A huge number of SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, cases can be laid at his feet. To this day the Back to Sleep campaign is still fighting to update parents on what we now know: newborns should sleep on their backs until they can reliably roll over for themselves. The introduction of kudzu for erosion control. It has become invasive and girdles and kills plant life above ground without establishing proper roots, therefore causing soil erosion. Once upon a time, I found a wallet on the beach. Having lost my own more than once, and not having it returned to me, I am aware that it is a stressful life event. So, my first thought was how to return it quickly. Looking through the contents, the owner was from out of state and there was no contact information other than the driver's license. Aside from that, only a few credit cards and some cash. Not knowing how long ago the owner had left, I thought, let's just sit here for a while and maybe he will return looking for it, since it is the first thing I would do. After a couple hours of fun and sun we needed to move on. My next best idea was to turn it into the local police station, which we found easily enough just down the street. What I thought would be a quick in and out turned into a full-on interrogation session, during which I was, at one point, accused of theft/robbery. It was a bizarre experience, to say the least, which wasted an hour of our day. Bounties for killing invasive animals. You have a bunch of animals you don't want, so you pay people for each animal they kill, usually by getting them to produce the carcass or a unique body part. People then start breeding said animal as it's easier and more lucrative than catching them in the wild. The authorities find out, and stop the bounty program. So the breeder let all their newly bred invasive animals into the wild. Situation is now worse than before. There's a famous example involving cobras in India, IIRC. They also tried this with rabbits in the area I used to live as a kid. In this case, no breeding was required as the bounty drop-off point was the local police station. You'd go in with a bag of cute bunny tails. The officer on duty would count the tails, and pay you for each tail. He'd then take the bag of tails round the back of the station and pop them in the dumpster. At which point, a friend of the bounty hunter would dive into the dumpster, retrieve the tails, go into the police station by the front door, and repeat the cycle with the just retrieved set of tails. Trying to rescue too many cats. Haiti did not have cholera. A disastrous earthquake hit Haiti in 2010. After the earthquake, humanitarian forces from the UN arrived to help, and the Nepalese contingent reintroduced cholera to Haiti. This epidemic has since infected approximately 850,000 people and killed over 10,000. Sheltering your kid from every possible problem. The introduction of non-native species as a means of solving an environmental problem. Those parents who solve all their kids' issues and don't make them stress about consequences of their own actions. Their kids just turn into inept and entitled adults who still act 15 for decades and not only have a harder life for themselves but make life miserable for everyone around them too. Edit. 1. Yes, it's bad to go too far the other way. Raising a child is a balancing act, I get that, but ignoring a child isn't usually from good intentions while spoiling them often is, and that was the prompt, smiley face. 2. If this sounds like it happened to you, I promise you that you can get yourself out of the cycle. It sucks and it hurts and it's unpleasant, but you can do it if you want to. Get ready to fail, and then keep trying anyway. Persistence will be a new skill, and you will be bad at it. And that's okay. You didn't do this to yourself, you don't need to feel shame. Digging yourself out, however, is something you'll be doing yourself, and you can take pride in every step you make it the right direction. Lobotomy. Surgery to fix the mentally unwell. It sounds so good, no more reliance on medication, you're good from now on. But it didn't work. The outcomes were awful and it was frequently done without any sort of consent. It all could have been shut down fairly quickly if people were honest about what was happening, but careers and money was at stake. So many unnecessarily suffered. On a personal scale, trying to help a really drunk person. I'm a woman and talkative, and I started talking to another woman at a bar who was really drunk. She told me her friends deserted her, so I said she could hang out with me and my friends as it was my birthday, to keep an eye on her and because she seemed fun. Then she started falling off of chairs and spilling drinks, so I encouraged her to get a cab. She started crying how everyone hates her as I was helping her outside but agreed to go home. I got a cab, paid for it because she was a mess, and all of a sudden she got really violent and ended up kicking me in the face trying to get out of the cab because she wasn't done. She pushed me and told me to fuck off but ultimately sat back down in the cab crying. We had already exchanged numbers, so the next day she texted me apologizing profusely and asking if we could stay friends. I told her I appreciated her apology but no thanks. I will always try to help people where I can, but that turned me off from going above and beyond. Plus, you can rarely rationalize with really drunk and upset people. Since the abysmal performance of American schools has been in the news recently, No Child Left Behind and its replacement Every Student Succeeds Act. America has never had really good public education, but it used to be serviceable. NCLB came in to try and create some milestones and accountability. Instead it made the problem worse. ECSS came in and tried to address its problems, but changed the stuff that wasn't the problem and left the bad parts unscathed. Taken all together, 57% of high school graduates can't read at a 7th grade reading level and over a quarter are functionally illiterate. Zero tolerance in schools. Now the bullied kids are being punished. Most moral panics? Stranger danger, convincing people in the 1970s to 90s that hundreds of thousands of American children were being yoinked into random cars by evil strangers each year, while downplaying and underfunding the resources that could actually help decrease child abduction. Child abductions not only never came anywhere near those huge numbers, but it was and still is nearly always a custodial issue or a very close family member. Teaching people to be wary of kidnapping is great, directing all their fears toward vague spooky strangers and not helping people learn how to actually prevent kidnapping is kinda shit. I feel like Dynamite is a pretty great example. He literally just made it for mining and was so horrified by people using it on other people he made the Nobel Peace Prize. Which movie character or real person can be identified by a single line said by them? I'll be back. To infinity and beyond. You shall not pass. Hasta la vista, baby. Dio. Wilson. I am your father. I have had IT with these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane. I see dead people. Shaken. Not stirred. This is Sparta. My mama always said life was like a box of chocolates. What are you doing in my swamp? Here's Johnny. You're a wizard, Harry. Men of Reddit, what's the one thing you hate about being a man? Sometimes my penis just won't listen to me. Being completely invisible. It can be an advantage. When I want to, I can go about my day in peace without interruptions from anybody. And sometimes you just want to slip into the background and be anonymous. But at the same time, nobody asks you how you are doing, if you need help or acknowledge that you exist at all. If you have problems, you just have to deal with it yourself and get over it. On the plus side, you get good at problem solving, but it can be mentally tiring and demotivating at times. A lot of men are completely starved for positive attention. Not just from women, but any kind of positive attention at all. The last time I heard anything positive about my appearance, it was from Grandma. It was 15 plus years ago and I am pretty sure she was drunk. I talked with my wife about this a few years ago and she found it very weird and sad. After that she has started to say something positive from time to time to the people she work with. The first time she did it was one of her closest co-workers. He was completely dumbfounded by it. He knew very well that it was just a friendly compliment, but he said he didn't really know how to handle it. Because he could not remember the last time something like that had happened. Baldness. I miss having hair to run my fingers through. In my teen years I grew it out because I knew I wouldn't have it for the rest of my life. I miss playing with it, I miss the warmth, and the cooling. Short hair actually acts as cooling fins compared to being bald and sweat just pouring off. I miss the sense of it being blown in the wind. I miss the slight protection against bumps and scrapes. Cabinets are the bane of my existence. When I had a girlfriend, one of the nice things she would do would be to drape her hair over my head so I could reimagine having hair. When I go to pee and have it all lined up just for it to shoot out a 40-degree angle. The automatic assumption that I just know about mechanics, carpentry, and DIY. Many people in my life assume that I can just turn off my anxiety and depression at will to power through because, manly man reasons. As a single dad, my son is generally excluded from things like park meetups or birthday parties because apparently I don't fit in with the other parents. I've probably been told it 1,000 times in 1,000 variations. What they actually mean is I'm a man and mums don't want me around because it's generally just mums. If you sit to pee sometimes you will screw up and piss through the gap between the toilet seat and the bowl. Lack of emotional support. People always think you have some hidden agenda. Dick touching the cold porcelain of the toilet. Leaking after I pee, no matter how much I shake it out. Being expected to romantically initiate. That I must be swift as the coursing river. About a month ago, I was walking down the street in Copenhagen. It was close to midnight, and I was the only one on the street. It was dark and a bit foggy. I was minding my own business, having my headphones on. I hadn't noticed, at some point, I was walking about 15 feet behind a young woman. She was clearly walking faster, slyly looking over her shoulder at me. I understood the situation, and stopped walking, pretending to look at windows, while she had time to walk out of sight. I understand why she probably was nervous, walking alone down a dark street, with an older guy behind her, and as such, give her space to get some distance between us. I also hate that's where we are. If there's any one thing it's that I never feel like I'm desired. If I don't make a move, no moves will be made.